Hello, everybody. I am very tired. Okay, so I got a comment from someone, a guy who I recognize his username. He's very defensive of the cognitive functions. He left me a response on my last video, sensing versus intuition, and I knew I would get some backlash for this, for not talking about the cognitive functions, because people just kind of, worship the cognitive functions. So he's saying he disagrees that intuition is internal attention and sensing is external attention, and it's a very basic root definition, which, by the way, that's what intuition is. It's internal attention. It's combining the words internal and attention. So here is where an overemphasis on the cognitive functions gets you into trouble. And I think there should be checks and balances in the type community. So you need to have some sort of something you check your theories against. And I simply think that if your cognitive function theory contradicts trait theory, I don't think you should pick the cognitive function theory, because this is going to trigger some people, me saying this, but the cognitive functions are riddled with contradictions. Some of you may even notice that they contradict them. Jung's theory of cognitive functions is self-contradictory in a lot of ways. And not only that, it's an entirely hypothetical notion. I'll repeat. It's an entirely hypothetical notion. Cognitive functions are an entirely hypothetical notion. So, does this mean they're completely invalid? No, I don't think so. But, a lot of people complain in the type community. They complain that, why doesn't science embrace typology? This is why. Because you are not acting scientific at all by worshiping the cognitive functions. Let me ask you this. Those of you watching, many of you probably, really do get triggered by things like this. Let me ask you this. Have you ever thought to yourself, hey, what if the cognitive functions are complete BS? If you've never asked yourself that question, you have left science and you have entered ideology land. You have entered religion, basically. Because I posted a quote recently on social media, more geared towards the political arena than anything else. But the quote is, if you can't question it, it's not science, it's propaganda. So if you can't question things, if you can't ask the question, are cognitive functions valid, then you have left science, you have entered a religion. So if you want typology to be accepted as a science, which is not going to happen, by the way, and you're also acting very unscientific and dogmatic about it. That it's just you're contradicting yourself. You're not making any sense. So that's the first thing I would say. Moreover, this guy was saying, his argument was basically that both NE and NI, aren't internal attention. He thinks that NE is external attention. And here is where an overemphasis on the cognitive functions, which this guy is obsessed with the cognitive functions, is all he ever talks about, makes you come to inaccurate conclusions. You have now left typology. You have completely abandoned the entire definition of intuition due to a confusion over the cognitive functions, basically. So, because if a function is extroverted, that doesn't mean that is external attention. Let me ask you this. I'm just going to ask you one question, guy, if you're watching. I can't pronounce your username at all, by the way. Maybe you're Indian or something. I'm not sure. But one question for you. What is the definition of intuition? How would you describe intuition? Actually, two questions. Second question is, where does intuition come from? What is it? Where does it come from? Is it some sort of force or something in the outside world that enters our brain? What is it? Please explain. And once you've once you've defined it and explained what it is, third question, is it internal or external? So I just want you to answer those three questions. So yeah, intuition, it is my assertion that intuition is always internal. No matter whether it's NI or NE, it's always internal. It is a subconscious. Intuition basically is people who are intuitive types are more in tune with their subconscious, is basically what it is. That's basically what it is. And your subconscious is entirely internal. So anyway, that's what that means. That's what that means when you say that intuition is internal attention. So there's no other way, there's no other thing it could be, basically. So, and the guy replied, I think he ended up deleting his comment actually, because for some reason it's not there anymore. But he replied to my response. All I said was it's not logical to use cognitive functions as your basis, because cognitive functions are a hypothetical notion riddled with contradictions, which they are. Now, I'm not saying there's no validity to them. I think there is, but I think it's a theory that is still in development, and I think it needs to be treated like it's in development and in research phase. And you know, that's why it contradicts itself, is because there's holes in it, there's problems. And I think you need to fix the problems before you start basing your entire system on it. Like certain systems, some people really like socionics, but I simply can't get behind a system that uses a hypothetical notion that's riddled with errors and contradictions as their basis for the entire system. Anyway, basically, he was telling me my response, saying that it's not logical to use a theory that's riddled with contradictions as your basis, your starting point, saying that's not logical. He was saying that makes me seem like an unhealthy TE user. So you'll notice this with people who overemphasize the cognitive functions. Almost every time I get into a debate with them, they'll accuse me of being a different type. So now he's accusing me of being a TJ of some sort, an unhealthy one, for saying something that's illogical, which I don't know if you people watching know INTPs very well, but it's a very common thing for INTPs to say something is illogical. So this is just another example. There's tons of examples of people doing this, people that just way overemphasize the cognitive functions. You need to have checks and balances, and basically I have just given you a lot of evidence and examples just right here in this discussion. Sorry, I don't know why that fell. This is just further illustrates the problems with overemphasizing cognitive functions in your, you need to check it against the basics. Like if you have completely left the definition of intuition in your descriptions of NE and NI, then there's something wrong. So you are completely misunderstanding intuition based on your ideas, your false ideas about the cognitive functions. And this is what I mean when I said in a previous video, for example, that the cognitive functions confuse people like crazy and lead people to make all these crazy mistypings and things like that. It's true, and here's just another example of that. This guy has no idea what intuition is. I think he even said something like that the only difference between sensing and intuition is observations that have been clouded and are fuzzy. So if that's your definition of intuition, then I really think you need to go back to the basics and relearn some of this stuff. Anyway, this guy's really mad at me, even though I wasn't even rude to him or anything. I just simply told him that I don't think it's logical. Anyway, he got very defensive. But you'll find that in any kind of system where people have left reality and entered religion, basically, and their ideas are made up of entirely imagination. There's nothing empirical about them whatsoever, which basically that's how many people utilize the cognitive functions. You'll notice this, that they become very religious about it, and any kind of people who question their status quo of their community, you know, you will get hate for it. And I was fully aware. And you know what, guys? This is why my system is going to be better than anyone else's. This is why you will want to be typed by me, because I am not going to get caught up in this BS. I'm going to keep things as empirical as I can and based on scientific research. And you don't have to worry about all this crazy, crazy subjective ideas being injected into it. So this is why you're going to want to be typed by me and not other people. Because I am the person, basically the only person I've seen that's going to operate my system in this way. And I'm going to get hate for it. I realize that, and I'm prepared for that. Anyway, so no hard feelings. This guy, I think he just needs to rethink some of his incorrect ideas. And, go back to the drawing board. Go back to the basics. Really think a lot of people need to do that. So, thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned for more stuff.